Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a SwordCraft deck. This one is pretty straightforward. It's a pretty straight up normal SwordCraft deck for the most part. It's a bit different to some of the other ones I've covered because it is running 3 Blazing Line Admiral. This card's actually become a very interesting addition to this deck and definitely one that I would recommend giving a go if you have got the cards for it. I've also included, instead of running 3 Saber and 3 Latham, I have got double of the Servant of Usurpation, which is still a half decent card. Mainly because I'm actually missing some of these, that's why these aren't perfect. Otherwise you'd probably run 3 of each of those instead, but overall, really solid deck. Using the Ivory Sword Dance alt art card, really beautiful one actually. I really think that's one of the best alt arts we've got as far as crossover event cards go, for being all sparkly and beautiful. Either way, we're going to get right into this and check it out. So first up, we're going up against a Portalcraft. Portalcraft in rotation. Not as big a threat as it used to be. Still a reasonably good deck, but I definitely wouldn't put it in the top 3 right now. And we're starting off with a very good hand. Turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 if we want it, although I do prefer to use Cyber Cannoneer as a turn 4 play, since we do get 3 bodies out of it, which is much better. Because this deck does focus on generating as many bodies as possible, so that you can of course get those free admirals. And Rapier Mask is actually a really good turn 2 play, surprisingly. Latham's also alright, although I do prefer to use him on 8, where you can actually get a lot more value long term out of him, and since I'm not sure where this match is going to go, I didn't want to just risk playing him out now. So that's why we did end up holding off. And we do have one of our Blazing Line Admirals in our hand now, along with the Sky Saber. So Sky Saber, ideally you don't want to force the Evo, but if you have to, it's definitely a good card to play either way. Like in this situation here, it's okay to play it. Especially considering we can immediately follow up with Sky Commander Celia, which is going to be a really good play next turn, provided our board survives. Even if it doesn't survive, they're going to have to waste some decent resources to remove all this effectively, and I mean, they got the cards to do it. They're playing that Portalcraft deck I did a video on not that long ago, but they definitely did get one of the better cards there. So Celia Hope Strategist is definitely the line of play to make with this. Again, going for as many bodies as possible. I usually regularly check how many followers have been destroyed from my set. You do have to count them up yourself, but that doesn't usually take long to reach 15. Because the quicker you can reach that 15 mark, the easier it is to really win the game with Blazing Light Admiral. So now we actually get a chance to go for the Cyber Cannoneer. Luckily, Evos in this deck are nowhere near as important as some other decks, so you can really just use them for removal purposes a lot of the time without much issue. Leod is usually the best thing to Evo, but sometimes you just can't do that in this deck, I've found. You really need to deal with some big threats sometimes and use Leod as kind of a back-end fodder. But it's definitely good since you can generate so many cheap followers from this deck. Like again here even, we can actually generate even more stuff, which is great. So we've just basically filled the board. I probably should have went for the Evo and the Leod there too, but I did decide to hold off just in case next turn Latham Evo would be better. And we end up with 2 Blazing Light Admirals, which means we can actually only get 1 from our deck now. Definitely would prefer to get them by invocation than anything, but I mean, even as an 8-drop, it's an okay card if you already have a board present. Unfortunately, going up against artifacts which deal with these boards very easily is definitely not the best thing in the world for us. At least they are wasting a lot of artifacts this turn, which is good. But we are on a clock. If we end up getting Machina on turn 10, we're pretty much screwed. At least we did manage to reach that Blazing Line Admiral. And with the Latham, we actually get to boost and get some damage in. So I did end up using the Evo because I want to force as much damage as possible. And now they again have to deal with quite a pain in the ass board with artifacts. Since I am well beyond the 3 damage limit, they're going to have to sacrifice between 2 and 3 followers for each one, excluding the Admiral itself. The Admiral itself is actually very easy to take out. The other 2 though are going to cost somewhere between 2 and 3 followers a lot of the time. So Apostle of Destruction. Not a bad play. Ooh, that hurt. Didn't want to see that. But they're not going to have a fun time dealing with this. So they need one more damage in on this thing. Analyzing Artifact will do it, but they have wasted their Evo, which means they now can't recover with the Machina next turn, so they're not going to have a lot of fun going up against the rest of this deck going forward. So there's really no way for them to really make a comeback without that Evo point. So while it looked like they were in the lead, which they definitely were as far as board presence go, they weren't going to have a fun time. Considering my Latham effect was up, and the current state of the board, with no Evos on their side, they weren't going to be able to kill me in one fell swoop, and that was definitely detrimental to them. They could have potentially dragged the game out and got the win, but I think the odds were definitely going to be stacked against the opponent, which is why the concede was probably the right move for them. Instead of wasting a bunch of time, they can just kind of move on to the next match and accept that wasn't going to go their way. So we started off with a fairly decent early game. Oathless Knight summoning a couple of followers there, so we get at least those two. Kind of makes up for no turn 1 play. And either of Warrior Wing. I went to say White Wing because that's the, of course, Haven variation. Prism Swing, good move. We do want to remove this because I don't think I want to leave it up. Probably just suicide the 1/1 there. Keep the Quick Blader for next turn when Skysaber will be usable, since we can of course combo those together for a very cheap board. And I still managed to get the advantage out. I was trying to avoid them getting the free 4/4 there. So I'm a little disappointed in that turn. But we can still of course deal with this pretty reasonably. And with a little bit of an Evo, we should actually be pretty much fine here. And Apostle will actually be pretty decent next turn, considering this is basically just a straight up Holy Lion deck. I recognize pretty much all the cards that they're playing for that, so it makes it very easy to predict that's what we're going to see. Moriacrium without the proc, that's not really a big threat right now. Blade was a good turn, and Sealed Tomb, actually not that handy for them. And Skycommander Celia, that's actually insane. That top deck has basically won us the game. Actually, I think it has. So 6 plus the Evo plus 1 point for the Quick Blader was 9. That top deck literally won us that game. So this deck I also found a lot of fun to play. A lot of decks you've really got to conserve your Evos and use them at the right moment, but a deck like this, you really don't have to worry too much, since most of the focus is on just flooding the board and keeping up that pressure. It's very easy to do. Of course, you won't always be able to do that. You will brick the occasional hand, but for the most part, you can do a very good job very easily. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.